join me in honoring the 100 startups as well as honoring the people who have put so much work on this effort. Um, just one statement from my aspect is that from my perspective is that I have seen people here from different backgrounds, so much talent. We have heard so many stories on stage. We have seen the talent. We have also seen people, as you're having the conversations, that there's so much talent in our community. And what we are here all to do is to provide access to opportunities, to provide access to resources. Because talent, we have plenty. And now it is our job to be able to support, encourage startups, as well as to be able to invest. We are great consumers. How can we put also our investments and continue to grow and build people? So tonight, what we're going to do next is two main items on the agenda. One of them is we're going to have, of course, the 100 startups. Please join me, stay with us for that. But let's just start by looking at the Adelante Award. So I would like to invite to stage Frank Carvajal. He doesn't need any introduction. Many of you know him. I am honored to meet him for the very first time in person. I've been following him in LinkedIn and many other places. He is the founder of Estiempos. He is the advisory. So he's also in the advisory board of Angeles Investors. He really lives by example, by elevating our people. And all I can tell you is just look him up if you don't know him already, but I'm sure many of you do. So here, over to you, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to everyone listening in, streaming now, live, across the globe, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, the US, and the folks in the room, thank you so much. I know it's a long day, but in order to build a sustainable business, a successful business, long hours await you. And with long hours awaiting us, it's about built to last. Have you heard of that book, Built to Last? How many? Yes, with the co-author Jim Collins, Dr. Jerry Porras. I want to focus a little on Built to Last because that is how I met Dr. Porras. I was first writing my first book in 2004. And I did research, and it was easy to find Hispanic executives, entrepreneurs, scientists. But when it came to business professors, it was much harder, much more difficult. And then I did further research, and I found someone in our very own backyard here in the Silicon Valley, known as Dr. Jerry Porras. And I said, oh my goodness, he's a professor emeritus now at the MBA program at Stanford University, Mexican American from El Paso. My wife's dad is from El Paso. Oh my goodness, I need to get a hold of Dr. Porras. And a great leader says yes if you have a great idea, but you cannot give up on your idea. So I shared a little bit with Dr. Porras, and as a great mentor and professor does, he asked me questions. He asked the question, why this book? And see, as a Latino community, especially entrepreneurs, we always have to be prepared. And so today, Adelante will go to Dr. Jerry Porras, also one of the founding members of LBAN. Let's give it up for LBAN. Yes, a scaling program. Let's give it up for Dr. Jerry Porras, inaugural awardee. Yes, yes. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Frank, for those wonderful remarks. And, when we look at the Adelante Award and kind of what it stands for, it's an inaugural award for really moving our community forward and really, in the end, moving our country forward. When you look at Dr. Porras and all he's done, his leadership at one of the leading universities in the world, in terms of Stanford, And then we were talking earlier about, in life, there's a lot of people who talk about problems, talk about issues, and then there's very few that really actually kind of make things happen and get things done. And Dr. Porras has done that with LBAN. So, Dr. Porras, it's my honor, and on behalf of the members of Angeles, our board, our advisory board, our extended portfolio ecosystem, it's our honor to present to you with our 2022 inaugural Adelante Award. Dr. Porras.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this honor. I really feel blessed to be receiving this from you. And when I describe, which I will in a few minutes, the efforts that we've gone through over the last 10 years, I think you'll agree that this award should be given to much more than me, but also to the people that I've worked with at LBAN and also at the Stanford Business School. I became an emeritus professor in 2001 after having been at Stanford over 30 years. And for the first, 6 or 7 years, I was still doing a lot of traveling, talking about Built to Last. And that kind of got tiresome after a bit, because I'd been doing it since '94 when the book came out. And so I just decided I wanted to rest a bit, and I did for a while, and just didn't do anything important or useful or anything that contributed to the world. And I started getting a little bit restless about that. So in almost 10 years to the month, as actually was in March instead of May, I happened to get together with a group of Latino MBA alums that had been out about 20 years or so. And they were also feeling a bit restless about their careers. They had accomplished a lot, but they were wanting to refocus their efforts on the Latino community, because they were in companies all over the country doing all sorts of things, but not directly involved with the Latino community. And they were feeling a need to do something. So we talked for a while over the period of that year about what we could do to, quote, give back to the Latino community. And out of those discussions came some perspectives that I'd like to share with you, because I think they're key in trying to understand our efforts, but also I think key in understanding what it's going to take for the Latino business community to make the impact that they need to make, you need to make, in order to really advance not only Latinos, but the society. This country is going to be dependent on the success of Latinos. Right now, we're 18%. We're going to be 30% around 2050. That's not that far away. And if 30% of the population is not producing at a level that's commensurate with the rest of the population, what happens to an economy? Our economy is driven by consumption, and 70% roughly of the GDP of the country is driven by consumption. And if 30% of the population is not consuming at a very high level, because they just don't have the resource and the ability to do that, what's going to happen to the whole country? The whole country is going to suffer economically. So Latinos as a population needs to advance a lot economically. And how do we get that to happen? And that was the question that was really at the top of our minds, is how do we get that to happen? Because if we don't get it to happen, if we don't get that advance, then everybody's going to suffer. So let me say that early on, our efforts were not being justified to outsiders, to non-Latinos. They were not being justified as a moral argument, that it's only fair that you should give Latinos a fair chance, that you're being biased or prejudiced if you don't give Latinos a fair chance, and you ought to change. We did not want to make that argument. Because what does that argument do? It produces a lot of words in response. Yeah, you're right. It's a great idea. We ought to be doing this. We ought to be doing that. But it creates virtually no action. And we've seen that, and I've seen it, and I saw it, and we all saw it during that period about 10 years ago. So we said, hey, we've got to make an economic argument. We've got to make an argument that really hits people in their pocketbooks, and especially business people are going to listen to that. If it worries them enough, they're going to start doing something about it. Now, needless to say, even that argument doesn't work very fast because people don't want to see the world that way. They want to resist it because it's forcing them to change. So our argument is an economic argument, and where we came from was purely an economic argument. So we got together in these discussions, and we came up with the idea of, first of all, we want to create a nonprofit. So we created the Latino Business Action Network. And let me emphasize the A. The A, action. I'd been to conferences and I'd seen all sorts of papers written and all this about this problem and with Latinos and that problem, and then we ought to solve it this way, and nothing happens. So we said, we don't want to create just white papers or have conferences and people come and they talk to each other and they all feel good and they leave and nothing happens. We wanted action. So that's what Latino Business Action Network was started with, is we wanted to create something that created action. Well, so what do we want to focus on? We want to help the Latino community prosper. Well, what does a community need to prosper? Well, it needs a lot of things, but at a very fundamental level, it needs wealth. There needs to be wealth in a community in order for it to have good schools, good housing, low crime rates, all of the things that make a community an attractive one to be in. And the wealth in Latino communities was pretty low. It still isn't as high as it needs to be. So we asked ourselves, well, how do we increase the wealth of Latino communities? And our conclusion was, after a lot of talking about it, was that it was entrepreneurship. It was entrepreneurship. That entrepreneurship is the fastest, most effective way for Latinos to create wealth for their communities and for themselves. So entrepreneurship became the key focus. And then as we looked at that further, we saw that Latinos love to start businesses. I don't know if it's in the DNA or what, but Latinos love to start businesses, and Latinos were starting businesses at faster rates than anybody else as we looked at the data. So we were, just 5 of us, a small group, the 6 of us, a small group. We said, well, are we going to try to help start more businesses? Is that the way to do it? We said, no, we would be wasting our time. There are a lot of other people trying to do that, and then Latinos are doing it on their own. So where should we focus our efforts? And we decided, based on a very startling statistic, 2 startling statistics. The first is that Latinos are starting business at faster rates than anybody else, by factors of 2 to 4, depending on who you're comparing them to. But now we're about a little over 5 million Latino-owned businesses. Back in 2007, we were something like about 1.2. So Latinos have been creating like a million net new businesses every 5 years. So Latinos like to start businesses. We don't want to contribute to more of that because we'd be wasting our efforts and time, we thought. Be marginally a small addition. Second statistic that really focused us was that Latino businesses tend to stay small. Only 3% of them have revenues of over $1 million a year, compared to 9% for white-owned businesses. So we said, that's got to be our sweet spot. We have to focus on helping Latinos grow big businesses. And bigger than $1 million, and bigger than $100 million, and bigger than $500 million. We want Latinos to grow billion-dollar businesses at plus. Yeah, that's what we're about. And an important reason to have large Latino-owned businesses is because large businesses shape the society more than anything else in this country. Large businesses affect, clearly, the economy. They affect the laws of the land. They affect the policies of the government. They affect the culture of the society. A lot of the values and norms that are in the society have been generated or reinforced by big businesses. And Latinos do not have a seat at that table. There are a very small number of billion-dollar Latino-owned businesses. By my last count, there were like 12. So we want to help create those types of businesses, and the way we went about doing it was we decided there were three important things we had to do. One is we had to generate data so that people who are making decisions could make data-driven decisions instead of their impressions or their stereotypes or their hunches. Data-driven decisions, that's what we were looking for. So we need to generate data because there wasn't a lot of data about Latino-owned businesses. The second thing we wanted to do was we wanted to intervene into the lives of businesses directly and educate Latino business owners on how to grow their businesses, really support that. And the third thing we wanted to do was we wanted to create an ecosystem that would help Latino businesses to grow. As I said, they're not big. And there are reasons that they aren't big. And one of the key reasons is that the ecosystem that Latino businesses operate in is not supportive of their growth. They grow in spite of the ecosystem that they're operating in. So we wanted to help create an ecosystem that would support growth. So three things came out of that. Those three action items, if you will. Those three strategies. We said, well, we can't do it alone. We're 6 people. We're sitting here in a room. We don't have any money. We can raise some money. But what can we do to really implement, because action, what could we do to implement these ideas? So we figured that we had to create a relationship with a Stanford Business School. We were all associated with the Stanford Business School, and the Stanford Business School has a lot of human resources to accomplish things. So we said, okay, we want to do research. Let's find faculty members inside of the business school that want to do research. We want to put on a program to help people learn how to scale. Well, let's find a faculty member that will lead a program that focuses on scaling. So those two areas were the areas where the collaboration was the biggest. And the model we use is that LBAN, the Latino Business Action Network, goes out and raises money. It comes out with program and project ideas. Then goes to Stanford and finds someone in there to implement it. And then funds the costs of that. So LBAN is funding the cost of our research. And LBAN is funding, to a large degree, the cost of the executive program. We charge a tuition, but it's small in relationship to the overall cost of putting on a program like this. It's like, the tuition is about 10% of what it costs, or less. So LBAN funds that. And then LBAN has taken the leadership in building the ecosystem. So what have we accomplished? Those are our goals. That's what we were trying to do. Oh, and by the way, this collaboration with the Stanford Business School is called the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, SLEI. We call it SLAY. So there's SLAY, and it consists of LBAN and the GSB. A lot of acronyms, okay? And that's how we operate. So what have we done? Well, on the research side, the main thrust of our research has been a national survey of Latino-owned businesses. We want to know, what were they like? How are they founded? What are their characteristics? How do they raise money? Are they successful in raising money? If they're not, they know why not. So we wanted to understand where Latino businesses were, and then we also want to understand what are the barriers to their growth. And the research over time has focused more and more deeply on the barriers to their growth. We've published 7 annual surveys. Our last survey consisted of 15,000 companies nationwide. 7,500 of them were Latino and 7,500 were white, because we started wanting to compare what's the experience of the Latino business in relationship to the experience of the white business. So Latino goes and asks for $100,000 from a national bank. How likely are they to get that loan compared to the white-owned business doing the same thing? And both businesses have kind of comparable key characteristics like revenues, profits, and so on. And we found out that the likelihood of a Latino business getting that loan is about 60% of what it is for a white-owned business. Something's going on. Now, we can't tell exactly what's going on, but we can point out that something's going on and make it as public as we can. And hopefully that begins to drive action. So we've got these reports that we put out. If you're interested in seeing the reports, go to lban.us, and they're all in there, and you can download them. We have also done some other research. We created a book of readings on Latino businesses and so on. The second part, the executive education part. We've created this online program. It's not an online, it's a hybrid program that's partially online and partially face-to-face at Stanford. This program is focused on scaling. The participants come to Stanford for 2 days. They go online for 6 weeks, and they come back for a day. This program is run in cohorts. We run 2 cohorts a year. Each cohort has 75 to 80 participants in it. Participants go through the program, and after they complete the program, we've created another entity, which I will describe to you in a minute. But the program focuses on scaling. We now have about 880 graduates of this program. We run 12 cohorts. We're starting our 13th cohort in 2 weeks. So we have about 880 participants. And the graduation rate or the completion rate is about 94%, which for an online program is on the moon. But that's one of the things that the LBAN staff has been very good at in helping people stay in that program and do the work, because it takes a lot of work. You don't just do an hour a week. You're doing 4 to 6 to 8 hours a week. That's right. So it's a program that is significant, important, and is making a difference in the lives of these companies. So these companies are prospering more. We get reports back, they're prospering more based on the experiences that they've gotten in the program and the networks that have been created for them. That's the third part, the ecosystem. The most powerful part of our ecosystem so far is that of the 880 graduates of the program, about 750 of them participate actively on a platform called Mobilize. And so folks are on that platform on a daily and weekly basis, and they're sharing information. One of the things we preach in the program is do business with each other and get business for each other. Okay? That's where the rubber meets the road. Doing business. And so we see on this platform business getting done, alliances being created, joint ventures being put together. People come on and say, hey, I'm looking for a tax accountant to do my taxes. The tax company pops up and says, hey, I can do them. So we're having people do business with each other and get business for each other. During the PPP loan crisis, people were on there constantly, and information was getting fed to them on a daily basis about what was going on with PPP. What are the results? 18% of all Latino businesses that applied for PPP loans received them. 18%. 28% of all white-owned businesses received the loan. 82% of our alumni received a loan. 82%. So this network makes a difference. It makes a big difference. What else do we have in this network? Well, we put together a group of about 150 mentors over the space of the 10 years we've been operating. And these mentors are available. They're mentored during the program, and relationships are created that last way past the end of the program. We also have a network of capital providers, over 50 of them now. And these capital providers participate in our program. At the end of the program, they come in and they meet our participants, and some relationships get built and funding gets done. We want funding to happen. We don't want them to just talk. Talking is important as a first step to creating a relationship, but in the end, we want funding to actually occur. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's how I've been spending my last 10 years. And I must say that as I reflect back on that and reflect on this award, that I really mean to say that this award really should be shared by all the staff at LBAN, and we've got a couple of them here. Why don't you stand up and let everybody know who you are? Thank you so much. This is Elian and Diego, and they've made a huge difference in the success of our program. And the staff and the research staff at the business school, they're really the ones that have made everything happen. And so I've been along for the ride. And it's been a crazy ride, and I really have enjoyed it. And I thank you so much.